Excellencies, ladies, and I think I see a few gentlemen. Welcome to Sustainable Capital and Innovation in Green Finance. Delighted to be with you today. The conversation will center around capital, climate, and collective capabilities. For those that are familiar with your moderator, he has an addiction, an affinity, and an affliction for alliteration and likes to center and frame conversations around digitalization, decarbonization, and diversification with our females in finance here today. For those that are familiar with the energy space, we often center our conversations as well around availability, affordability, and accessibility. Before I introduce our star-studded lineup, our movers and shakers, just a quick question to ensure everybody's caffeinated here. The share of women operating in the renewable sector. Anybody want to shout out? The lady with the lovely scarf at the front, if you could shout out, you get a coffee, dinner, or lunch if you get it right. Just a number, nothing else. The percentage of women operating in the renewable sector. Anybody hazard a guess?
14.
14. It's 32%, everybody. And when we talk about the big global climate funds, what is the percentage of those that are operating and investing in the MENA region? Is it above 10% or below 10%? Hands up if it's above 10%. Great, we've got some optimists. It's a measly 6.6%, everybody. So a lot more to do. What are the takeaways from that? Big growth with women in this space, and of course, a massive capital gap. So there is, of course, a shift, as we're seeing, in terms of the momentum around money, markets, and mobility, and this drive of aspiration to acceleration, ideas to investment, pledges to portfolios, and we're looking forward to discussing all of that today. We have with us this afternoon at 1:30 p.m. Her Excellency Marwa Al Mansouri, who is a board member at the Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She is also the Vice President of Government Relations at Siemens. We have the Senior Vice President, Fatma Deen, at ThyssenKrupp Group. We also have Laura Merlini, who is the Managing Director for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Kaya Association. Let's dive right in, right? So, well, fine if you'd like to clap. Marhaba. So I'd like to just jump right in. Marwa, you're on home turf, so I'm going to pick on you first. Is sustainable economics now smart?
So first of all, thank you, and thank you everyone for being here, and for being here in the Abu Dhabi Finance Week. So the question is sustainability smart economics, right? Yes, it is.
Why?
Number one, the first thing is that it adds value. It adds value and creates a solid foundation for companies and organizations to grow, to be future ready for this diverse economy. And now sustainability is really not a cost, right, for organization. It's more of a process. It's more about accelerating and having that growth mentality. And that's the main reason. Now, for speaking in the MENA region, talking about the UAE and Saudi especially. Perfect, thank you. So talking about the UAE and Saudi especially, sustainability has been embedded in their national industrial strategies. And that's something amazing and going forward with that, not just Saudi and UAE, different regions. And what's even much more great about that is that technology is the other hand of it. So when we talk about technology, we talk about digital twins, AI, smart energy systems. This all puts a hand on and cuts costs for organizations. It optimizes productivity, and in the end, it is a benefit for national strategies and national agendas and organizations as themselves. For doing that, and I think that's important, it is not how determined we are in adopting sustainability, it's more of how fast we move. And this is important because the world is getting competitive. Each organization is competing with one another. And now if you ask yourself, the question used to be, how much will it cost us to adopt, to be sustainable? Now the question shifted to, in the long term, how much will it cost us if we are not sustainable? And this is important to take into consideration.
Thank you, Marwa. This whole concept of discount rates and whether you should invest early to benefit later is something that we grapple with across sectors, no different here today. Fatma, you're at ThyssenKrupp. What are your perspectives on sustainable investments as smart economics, intelligent economics?
So I think we've also really seen this narrative shift in the last 5+ years. We are seeing that governments, industry leaders, investors are really seeing it as a core driver for competitiveness, for FDI attraction, and also for long-term national resilience. So the conversation has really changed, and it's really about sustainability being an industrial strategic conversation as opposed to previously. At ThyssenKrupp, which is a 200-year-old engineering legacy organization made up of ThyssenKrupp Steel, we have ThyssenKrupp Automotive, we have Marine Systems, Material Services, and Decarbon Technologies. The hat that I'm wearing today is on behalf of Decarbon Technologies, representing ThyssenKrupp Uhde. We are, at ThyssenKrupp Uhde, a 100-year-old engineering and technology organization. And although we are not walking away from our heritage, we are definitely accelerating the green growth in our previous kind of century long-term know-how of how to transition across. So we're not leaving the gray or the blue, but we are definitely looking at transitioning to the green. So we are supporting that with low carbon projects in hydrogen, in ammonia, in sustainable aviation fuels, and other downstream value chemicals. I think, as Dr. Sultan said at the opening of ADIPEC, it's no longer about energy transition, but really about energy addition. And that's exactly what we're doing at ThyssenKrupp Uhde. We're not walking away from our heritage or our core, but we're really looking at how we can accelerate the growth and how we can move into this space. As Marwa rightly said, that it's no longer, yes, the long-term front-loaded costs are high at the moment, but the costs of not transitioning now in the future are actually going to be higher. So I think ultimately, in order to build this green industrial transformation at scale, we need capital, we need clarity, and we need confidence. And I really believe GCC, especially the UAE, has this to drive it forward. And again, if we look at Strategy&, for example, one of their reports recently stated that if the GCC looks at directing green investments outside of 6 major non-oil sectors, that being power, water, construction, waste management, transportation, and agriculture, we could potentially increase our GDP value by $2 trillion USD and create up to 1 million jobs by 2030.
Thank you so much, Fatma. And extra marks for capital, clarity, confidence. We love our alliteration here on this stage. And now bring some investment, infrastructure, and innovation to the discussion. Laura, you are at the Chartered Alternative Investment Association. Could you give us your perspective on this from the investment standpoint?
Exactly, and I really like when you mentioned the importance of capital and the cost of non-transitioning, so that it's definitely something to bear in mind. Also because if you think about ESG, if you think about long-term sustainability, inevitably it's linked with and to the growth of alternative investments, because capital formation is in the real asset world, is in the private markets. So as we've heard in the past session during these days, there is like a goal to reach alphas, and from an investor perspective. And if alpha is the goal, diversification is the strategy. So we should stop thinking ESG like a peripheral bet that belongs thanks to these heavy regulation, taxonomy, and other apparatus around the ESG concept in the operations, to bring it up front. So it's a part of the decision-making tool of sophisticated investors. I recently was really happy to present the other day in Oman the Total Portfolio Approach, our new paper that was derived from the experiences of leading sovereign wealth funds, especially also in this area. And they basically say, if we want to transition to a total portfolio approach, and I invite you to download that paper on our website, we really need to take into account 4 elements: governance, culture, competition for capital, but most importantly is the factor lens. So if we invest with the factor lens mentality of having ESG criteria adopted in the portfolio construction. From a sophisticated investor viewpoint, that would be a great, great shift. And it's happening now in the Middle East at sovereign wealth fund level, but also family offices.
Thank you so much, Laura. Just to come back to you in the audience, we've heard a little bit of the private sector perspective on this, but do we feel that policymakers also share this sentiment of investing patient capital in sustainable investments that have long-term horizons? Of course, we have a Dickensian tale of two regions, with some who are extremely financially strong, hashtag Abu Dhabi capital of capital, but of course those that are not as financially robust. Just a show of hands for those who feel that the policymakers share the same sentiment as the private sector. Around 5%. Thank you so much. We'd now like to come back and just sort of get some perspectives. Marwa, if I may circle back to you on this blended finance narrative. How is it evolving? How are you seeing it evolving in the region, UAE, beyond? Kobedi, what do we need to know?
So when it comes to blended finance, it's progressing quite high. And focusing on something that just I want to recap on that sustainability is a process right now. It is not a report anymore. It's a process that investors focus on for the high ROI into it. And now when it comes to the MENA region and in the UAE, so we have clear strategies, we have clear directions, supporting different national strategies, private-public partnerships. This all really brings it together in one bucket, right? And when I repeated the sustainability is not a cost, but a process, I'll share maybe a few examples of what private and public partnerships brings on. So me also representing Siemens in a way, we work with the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure. So there was a phase where we had to strategize for retrofitting about 300 federal buildings. Phase one was 60 federal buildings. Now, the conclusion of this, with this partnership, we brought down the savings 27% in energy savings and about 30% in water savings. This really showcases and highlights how public and private partnerships work together, and how the momentum and private companies right now are not just focused in pilot projects, they are focused in large-scale projects that really benefit the national agenda. And if I go back to rephrasing what I say, it is not just about the numbers, it's not about financials, it's about partnerships. It's about how we work together, how we keep this momentum together, and how we advance together, not as a benchmark or a blueprint in the region, however, a blueprint in the global phase.
Do you find that the UAE successes are being exported or shared or borrowed?
Of course, 100%. I can share another example too.
Please, marhaba.
So we have also another partnership with the Ministry of Advanced Technology, of Industry and Advanced Technology, which is assessing about 300 manufacturing companies. From these 300 manufacturing companies, we assess how digitally mature they are, how sustainable they are, and how ready they are to go into the market. This all links with different government incentives, investors, and how can we support them from the government and from the private sector in expanding, whether it's in technology, whether it's in capital. And this is something that can be a blueprint for other even countries to implement.
Thank you so much. Fatma, can you offer us a ThyssenKruppian perspective on blended finance? Tell us a little bit about your activities in the region and your views on this.
Yep. So I believe blended finance is definitely the backbone to deliver large-scale, low-carbon projects. And I'll give you a few examples as to how ThyssenKrupp Uhde have accelerated our growth in these new sectors and areas. So the first one being our Carbon to Chem project in Germany, where we received 195 million euro public funding to support us with, firstly, early research and development, but secondly, to enable multi-partners to convert steel mill emissions into ammonia and methanol. The second example being our hydrogen-based green steel project in Duisburg, which received a 2 billion euro public funding to enable and support us with CO2 reduction of 3.5 million tons per year. More recently, we have our Uniper ammonia cracking demo plant, which is a precursor for a larger scale terminal that we are building in Germany to help Germany hit their 20 to 30% hydrogen demands by 2030. And the last but not least, currently in development stage, is our methanol to SAF demo plant being established in Europe as well at the moment. And again, that's to enable the blended finance to do these demo plants to then obviously scale up and support. So blended finance is definitely an enabler, and it really supports first movers and enables them to successfully accelerate their growth.
Thank you, Fatima. Do you see huge potential for ThyssenKrupp in the region as well?
Yep, so we are currently in discussions in the region at the moment. Based on our demo plants, we have already built in Germany, but based on that, we are now looking at accelerating that growth in the MENA region. So we are currently in discussions of doing that.
Thank you, thank you. Laura, your views on this? From
I will be
call it
very-
the European meets the EMEA perspective on this, if you like.
Absolutely, they will be very succinct also because we've noticed as Kaya, like a global professional organization in the alternative investment space, numbers talk by themselves. If you look at all the combination of traditional and alternative assets, we are now at US dollars 120 trillions. If you take only the alternative investment part is 25 trillion. So approximately 20% that it's set to grow to 30 trillion by 2030, and especially in this part of the world. And what I want to say here is that if you look at the returns, these private markets and alternatives in general are accountable for 54% of return. So that's definitely a no-brainer that where is the market going and where is the talent, not only the capital formation, but the talent formation is residing.
And you're with a chartered institute. Are you seeing a lot of pickup on the sort of training budgets? Is that something that you've been seeing, or?
Yes, again, and I think that this part of the world is doing magnificently well because there are a lot of incentive, a lot of opportunities, and a lot of consideration for the next gen, which is for me at the heart of what will be the future, especially if you have sustainability themes involved.
Thank you. Marwa, want to circle back to you. Women in Finance in partnership with Atlantic Council and First Abu Dhabi Bank. You sit on the board of the Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I believe the UAE has the highest proportion of female leaders, both in Parliament and at the Federal National Council. Mm-hmm. That's the government side. On the business side, we've seen in the region it's some 19%. Where do you see this going? How is it developing? What more can be done? Should more be done? I'm being provocative with that question mark. Hopefully no tomatoes thrown at me. Marwa, tell us.
I think this is the favorite question of mine, to be honest, especially when I'm an advocate for women. So women right now, they're in diverse industries, right? And it's clear that they're progressing, whether it's in energy, finance, infrastructure, it's just that clear. And even though all of that is not just about progression, it's more about decision-making in large-scale investments, decision-making in strategies that influence the national agendas, decision-making in geopolitical negotiations. So women are really going forward, and the main reason, the main drive of this is our leadership. And I think whether it's a national leadership or an organizational leadership, that backbone is a must and it's needed. And when it comes to also, as me speaking from a personal perspective, as an Emirati woman right now, working in the private sector and also representing the government sector, the leadership has not stopped supporting us in that way, from upskilling, making us ready for future industries, not just connecting with us with ecosystems, but also contributing how can we get global ecosystems in the UAE. So there was a woman I met 2 days ago, and her name was Seema. She has a company called Invest in Women, or I think Paul is somewhere in the audience, can correct me. So they take, so they have an alumni of 4,000 girls who are trained and gets to JP Morgan, gets to the best institution, financial institutions. And this negotiation, this discussion that happened 2 days ago is how can we really partner and not duplicate the same thing, but partner with a US-based company here in the UAE. So with us as women having all these benefits, I think my main, and to conclude this discussion, it's not what we are doing right now, it's we need to lead with purpose. And this is the main thing. We need to influence, we need to create a big impact, and we need to get the young women right now ready and much more ready for the newer landscape that's coming.
Thank you. And do you feel that the UAE not has a cheat mode because it's a small population with big capacities, or is there something that you could share with other parts of the region?
Can you clarify that?
So if you are a North African state with lower capacities and larger populations, what are the kind of things that the private sector or policymakers could or should be thinking about?
I think it's more of advocating for women in a way, and also women always have this empathy, and I think yes, it's true. I'm not going against that, but it's also about upskilling, investing in their development.
Yeah.
Being part of a board, being part of an organization, I think that push would really make a difference in different regions, in different countries. Because when a woman walks in a boardroom and feeling that she is just alone as a single woman there, of course she will stay quiet and just be a listener, right? But with the investment when it comes to leadership skills, she will talk. So I think with these type of investments from financial institutions would be beneficial.
Thank you, Marwa. Fatma, I know you've done a lot of work on this and you have the UK perspective, the UAE perspective, and vicariously the German perspective. Tell us a little bit about your views on this.
So we have definitely seen a rise of women taking more strategic leadership roles across government entities, organizations, banks, sovereign wealth funds, etc. And if you look at the GCC Gender Index board for 2025, there has been an increase on women sitting on boards from 5.2% in 2024 to 6.8% in 2025. So there has definitely been that increase. I think if I look at it from a personal perspective, my transitioning from oil and gas into energy wasn't accidental, it was very intentional. And it was driven by my two daughters who are now aged 16 and 17. But back then it was very much a case of, they asked me a question on whether my role in the oil and gas industry was purposeful, impactful, and whether I felt I was leaving a legacy. And when they asked me that question, that really hit, and I was like, okay, what am I doing and what do I want to do in the future? And I think we're talking about women, but I'm trying to incorporate the whole ecosystem, talking about the youth as well, because when I transitioned into the energy sector, my girls also followed that path. My daughter was asked to join Disney Academy. She actually rejected because she wanted to use her voice in a more powerful, meaningful way and sing based off renewable energy as opposed to joining Disney Academy. And we were actually going to conferences together. So the likes of COP, Expo, she was invited for the opening of FII as well. We were able to embrace that together. So she came from the youth perspective. I was there as a leader. And she's off to university in 8 months and looking at incorporating sustainability into her degree program as well. So for me, it's really about how do we bring this whole ecosystem together? It's not just about women leaders, but it's also looking at the youth who are potentially going to be these female leaders. I was at a university talk to master students 2 weeks ago for a business school in UAE. And again, exceptional candidates, but if we're talking about females, the female talent in the room was extraordinary. They're very curious, they're ambitious, they want to proceed, but again, they are looking for this ecosystem to support them and build them up to the next steps. So it's really about how can we bring this all together, because yes, we are trying to do something, but we need the youth to fulfill and see this through. So I think it's combining that together.
Thank you, Fatma. I haven't come across decibels to energy before, so I like that. Laura, could you give us the Kaya perspective on this?
Yes, definitely. I think we have to distinguish what is investment in women and investments for women. And the financial industry has been extremely creative in elaborating solutions, product, and structure that could fit the first category for women. So, especially with this wealth transfer and the next gen and all these, opportunities that we have ahead of us. For investing in women, the situation is a little bit different, I'm afraid. I see, if you see the latest data, there is data-driven advocacy that proves that all men-led investment teams systematically underperform those who are more diverse or have a predominance of women. So this is the case to invite sophisticated investors to adopt the GLI lens, the gender lens investment approach, and make sure that women's teams are also selected. And the last thing that I believe we still have a lot to do is the financing of the VC. If you look at the VC space, only unfortunately between 1% and 3% receive financing for women-led teams, and we really need to change that paradigm, because otherwise we do not advance in the sustainability goals that we have in mind.
Absolutely. Actually, the global average and EMENA average are almost neck and neck at 1.82%.
Exactly.
As we wrap up, one sentence, what are we looking for in 2026? We have just 20 odd days left until the new year. What are we looking forward to in 2026? You can't say the World Cup, and you can't say the 250th anniversary of the US. Marwa,
You always start with me.
I do.
I'll give it to
You're on home turf, I'm
Otherwise-
afraid. You're on home turf.
I think for 2026, I think I'll just give one word, and this is a word used by the founding father, Sheikh Zayed, Allah yarhamah. It is prosperity. Let's prosper, and let's just go forward in every way possible, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, just moving and progressing how we are doing here in the UAE and, implementing it globally.
Thank you so much. Fatma.
I'm looking forward to my daughter going off to university and for me to champion and support her success.
STEM or humanities or social sciences?
All of it.
All of it. Laura.
Very simple, building a culture of alternative investment, being able also to incorporate the disruptors and especially the innovation that we see in this industry. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. Before we just give our star-studded lineup a round of applause, who believes that this time next year, women will be even more integrated into the financial renewables and finance space in the UAE and beyond? Around 20%. On that note, I'd like to thank our incredible speakers for discussing climate, capital, how it's converging at this crossroads at this important time, and we need more females in finance in the capital of capital and across the Middle East and North Africa, where we continue to discuss money, markets, and mobility. On that note, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you to our speakers.